Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
$11 o'clock, live on a Monday morning. Thank you very much for being here, and Lock Shop is now underway. If you're listening live on TuneIn or at EdmontonSportsTalk.com, feel free to chime in. We're going to obviously have a big breakdown of everything that happened yesterday in the National Football League, and more discussion, I'm sure, on the Oilers and, of course, the Winnipeg Jets as well, us being in a Winnipeg and Edmonton market with the Lock Shop. I'm actually going to be on the Jets regional broadcast on Saturday previewing the CFL game with John Liu. John Liu invited me on, so for anybody in Winnipeg who's going to be watching both or doing a double dip or whatever, I will be on the Jets pregame or intermission or something. I don't know, but we'll be previewing the CFL West Final, which should be kind of fun. A huge shout out to John Liu for the invite. What hurt you yesterday in the National Football League? We'll get to a Fantasy Football 5 coming up as well. CJ Stroud owners unite, keeping my chances alive in 2 leagues. So we'll see how that plays out. We'll get into that. And then, of course, Oil Stream coming up here at Edmonton Sports Talk. And if you are listening on TuneIn, make sure you favorite it. So that'll just pop up every single time. Nice and easy for you. So we can get into that as well. Nasty Chat already going, like I said, 780-218-9999. We'll obviously be placing a few bets on the Monday Nighter, but just a big sports discussion to have ourselves. Huss, happy Monday, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. How was the weekend? How was the game out in BC?
Lions look good. Maddie, before you leave, can you turn me down just a little bit? Lions looked really good, buddy. It would have been a damn shame if the Calgary Stampeders somehow robbed us of the Lions and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So Vernon Adams was the definition of cooking. He was absolutely incredible. He hadn't been running the ball a lot this year. But his dad was in attendance, and he basically said, if I don't run the ball, my dad's going to kick my ass. So he went out and did it, ran for 3 touchdowns, threw for 2 more, over 400 yards passing in a playoff game for like the first time since Trevor Harris in 2017. And the Lions roll into IG Field this weekend with as much confidence as you can probably have.
That was a hell of a performance. A hell of a performance. And listen, I know we talked a lot about, how's Calgary going to hang with them? Are they going to be able to run the ball? I mean, Calgary comes right out throwing the football.
That was amazing.
And I'm like, wow, this could be a game. But BC really, from that moment on, I thought handled them quite well, as you would expect for a team that was in the mix for the top of the division as opposed to squeaking in with 6 wins. So yeah, Bombers, Lions next week right here in the Peg. Bring it on. Going to be awesome. And I guess the Montreal Alouettes get another crack at the Toronto Argos. Like everyone else in the East was just competing to be that team that got to Toronto. Now they've got a chance to do it. And, the one thing I'll say about the Argos is that, I mean, they've clearly been an elite team all season long with 16-2. But, man, it has been so long since they have played a meaningful, important football game.
Yeah, buddy.
I mean, there's something to be said for that. And that Montreal has the full nobody believes in us vibe going into this game. So I don't know. I think that CFL playoffs is going to be CFL playoff Saturday is going to be a great one. We'll see you here in Winnipeg for that. But holy smokes, what a Sunday in the NFL.
Huge Sunday in the NFL as well. Before we get there, I do want to play because those lines aren't out yet. So let's play Guess What the Line Should Be. For the the CFL East and West final. Let's start with the East. Is it within a touchdown, do you think, of the Argos and Alouettes? Right at a touchdown?
It's basically, I think it would be as low as 6.5. I think I'll say 7.5, though.
Okay, all right. I would agree with that. What about on the other side? Interesting line here, Lions and Bombers. That's a field goal, right?
Yeah, I think I will say Bombers -4.
Okay, that's where it opens, type of thing.
I think on a neutral field, based on the season that we've
still
had,
give them a bit.
Their championship pedigree and all that. And listen, we always say, oh, we'll give the home team 3 points. Well, in the regular season, I think we all agree in most places that doesn't really matter that much. On Saturday, in the middle of November in Winnipeg for a dome team coming in, it does matter. So I will lean above 3. So I'll go 4 for the Bombers.
I was looking ahead to the weather. Are we looking at like +1, +2, mix of sun and cloud? Like, that's not bad. That's not bad. I like that.
Well, Dusty, like, okay, so like I'll just pull this up right now. Let's see what we've got here. We got the weather. We're looking at the 7-day forecast. It says right now that it's going to be a high of 1.
Okay.
And a low of -2. However, this game starts at 5:30.
So it gets chilly quickly.
Well, and we've already, the time already got pushed back. So it will be dark when this game kicks off. Now, the good thing is we're not looking at a low of like -15 or something like that, because it would get pretty cold pretty quick. The huge thing, I think, is going to be the wind and whether there's any sort of snow. But, for Winnipeg in the middle of November, we're actually going to have a pretty nice night. Like, we're looking at highs above 0 pretty much for the next week and a half. So, but again, I don't think it'll be at that high by the time they kick off. It'll probably be a little bit. But listen, it's not going to be like that Bomber Rider game a couple years ago where, it was it was like -20 or whatever.
That was a little bit different. It was a little bit, I like that. I do think if it was like -15 and it was snowing, huge advantage Bombers. I do think we get a really good game just because it's not going to be like that, right? Like if the Lions were going to have success in the weather, it would have to just be this type of weather, So we'll see, man. I think it's going to be a pretty good game. I cannot wait to call it. I wanted to fly straight to Winnipeg and just like camp outside IG Field for 6 days so they let me in to call it. Like, I can't wait. I think it's going to be awesome.
ESTST on location, getting ready for the
big game. For the big
Although
game.
I imagine they sort of need you in Edmonton right now to talk about everything that's going on with the local hockey team,
buddy.
How was the show this morning?
I don't know. Pretty ridiculous. It's just they're a train wreck. They're a train wreck right now. Like, they own Nashville. They've owned Nashville forever. They crushed Nashville earlier this year in Nashville. And then this happens on Saturday, and people are in full-blown, is it fire Holland or is it fire Woodcroft? Are they going to trade for a goalie? They couldn't even dress a full lineup on Saturday because they're so screwed against the cap. So they're running 11 forwards and 6D. They just called up James Hamlin on like an emergency situation for the game tonight against Vancouver, who's already beaten them twice. Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, neither of them have scored a goal since the third game of the season on October 17th. It's November 6th right now.
Why haven't I been fading that on CoolBet every day?
I know.
About how ridiculous those numbers are for those guys each and every day. That's where the money's to be made right now. No goals for two of the best players in the league, game in and game out.
And then when it does hit, you're like, I'm crazy. Why would I have bet on them not to score?
Yeah.
We're actually, I think, let me see if our EST exclusive is already up today. Because we threw, it's already up. I've got this one for tonight. Connor McDavid to score, Quinn Hughes with a point, and over 6.5 goals, plus 355. If you want to grab that, all of our Edmontonians watching or listening, you can snag that in the exclusive page. We're obviously going to put together a little something for the Monday Nighter as well, Huss. But let's slide over, man, to the National Football League where, some of the big games that we were hoping to deliver actually delivered, which was awesome. Some of the games we didn't care about, we didn't need to care about, but some of the games we didn't think we'd care about, you get, the CJ Stroud story, or you get the Dobbs story in Minnesota, and ended up providing us with some pretty good drama yesterday.
Dude, like the one game, and we don't need to spend too much time on it because I was sort of choked about it. It ruined the partner parlay. The one that was supposed to be the prime game of that early slot, Baltimore just absolutely ransacked Seattle. So that was unfortunate. That was never really in the mix. But honestly, we'll get to the Chiefs and a couple of the later games in a minute. There a better story in the NFL coming out of yesterday than that Vikings win in Atlanta?
There can't be.
Josh Dobbs? Listen to this. This is from Kevin Seifert, who covers the Vikes
This was amazing.
for
Yes.
the NFL. He said, incredible stories from the Vikings locker room today. Josh Dobbs didn't take a single rep with the offense in practice. No snaps from Garrett Bradbury. Had never thrown passes to anyone and didn't know most of their names. That's for next week, he said. When it was time for Dobbs to come into the game, the Vikings offense huddled on the sideline and went through the team's 5 primary cadences, said right tackle Brian O'Neill. It was the first time he'd gone through it with the rest of the offense. And then here's one. Dobbs said he was not afraid to tell people what he didn't know today. Jordan Addison said that meant coming into the huddle and saying, okay, what do I have on this side? And we're telling him. Everyone was letting him know. And I will give a lot of credit, and other teams should pay attention to what the Minnesota Vikings do social media-wise. Those post-game speeches in the locker room with Kevin O'Connell are absolutely phenomenal. And they get a couple different camera angles. The audio is good. And, in the past, it had been a lot of, Kirk Cousins being in the bit, kind of, and it had been really cool to see what they'd done these last couple of weeks. But that scene yesterday with him handing out the game balls and then giving the last one to Josh Dobbs and him getting raised onto the shoulders of his teammates, man, that is what sports is all about. And I told you on this program, when the Vikings beat the 49ers in that Monday nighter, that was a game everyone had just that's a loss for them. That completely flipped the entire script of this season for Minnesota, if you ask me. I mean, they are in a much lighter point of their schedule. They played the Chiefs. They played the 49ers. They played some of those really difficult games. And while they were 0-3 and they lost those games, the opposite way of what they did last year with the one-score games, they've got a crazy amount of momentum, a belief, a defense that's coming around. And listen, I don't know whether we can expect Josh Dobbs to do week in and week out what he did in that incredible fashion yesterday. But I'll tell you what, this team is going to be competitive. They're going to be in their football games, and they could absolutely be a playoff team. And I don't think anybody thought that was the case when they were 0-3, and they sure as hell didn't think that when Kirk Cousins got out for the season.
Huss, you usually have such a good read on a situation, which is why this disturbs me a little bit right now, because you glossed over the main storyline. The Texas Rangers go 11-0 on the road listening to Creed. The Minnesota Vikings start listening to Creed and immediately turn their season around.
Are they still listening to Creed?
They're still listening to Creed?
I didn't know that was a Kirk thing.
No, they're still, I think it's like almost in honor of Kirk now. They are still listening to Creed. I just Googled it just to make sure. And, people are talking about a halftime appearance. This was posted yesterday. Highlights of Dobbs' run to Creed music. That was good. And a member of the Minnesota Vikings staff talked about how he listens to Creed in his office while diving into all of the video from the games. So, look, it worked for the World Series champions. They've adopted it. And to be honest with you, as a Detroit Lions fan, it's really the only thing that concerns me about the Minnesota Vikings. So I worry about this Creed bump moving forward. With that being said, we should totally ride it as long as we possibly can in the lock shop.
It's interesting. The Vikes and Lions don't play until December. And I think they play each other in like week 15 and week 17 or
like
something
2 or
like
3
that.
weeks. Yeah, I think that's it. Yep.
And there is the potential that second game might not mean a lot for Detroit. So I don't know. I'm high on the Vikes. I thought it was just a great story. Amazing win. And yeah, before we talk about the other ones, now CJ Stroud is going off. I was sitting there watching that, or the highlights of that, as I'm paying attention on one of the corner screens to the Colts-Panthers game. And, man, Bryce Young with 2 pick sixes yesterday. And we're looking at that right after CJ Stroud goes for 5 touchdowns and does what he did.
Best game by a rookie ever. Like, it was 470 yards and 5 touchdowns. Like,
I think he's 14 TDs, 1 pick so far this year. But I will tell you, lost in all of this was, where are we here? kicking. Dare Ogunbowale.
Oh, the kicker. Yes. The running back turned kicker.
The running back, number 33, rolling out there and blasting a 29-yard field goal in a game they won by 2 points. That game had a little bit of everything. But CJ Stroud got that ball back with 46 seconds left. And I don't believe any timeouts, and went the entire length of the field and got that done. Just an incredible performance by Houston. Obviously, we got up early to see the Chiefs take on the Dolphins. That one was maybe a little closer than I would have liked, considering where we were at halftime, up 21-0.
Yeah, that's true.
But I'll tell you what, like, the offense is going to be there, and the offense is going to get right, even though at times it didn't look very good yesterday. But this is the best defense that Patrick Mahomes has ever had. And for all the people that just sort of focus on the Chiefs offense and, some of the receivers are dropping balls or they can't quite out, make no mistake about it. This defense gives them a chance to win each and every day. Miami had not punted more than 4 times under McDaniel, 7 yesterday. So great performance. And then the night game, and we'll get into this with Patty. The Bengals, I tweeted this out last night. I mean,
they're a problem, right? They're a problem.
And the funny thing is, they're last place in the AFC North. Like, you pull it up.
All 4 teams would be in the playoffs today. All 4 of them.
Is that true?
Yeah, all 4.
Wow,
would be in the playoffs right now. I don't expect it to continue that way, but still, it's pretty impressive considering we're like halfway into the season.
Well, and the thing is that Pittsburgh has head-to-head wins over the Browns and Bengals, so that's kind of where they're 5. I mean, there will be more head-to-head matchups, but overall, that division is really, really tough. But since he looked awesome, and this kind of reminds me of last year. They started off 0-2. They didn't look very good. We knew that Joe Burrow wasn't healthy. He looks pretty damn good right now, and he's the only guy I would put up with Mahomes when it comes to, game on the line, fourth quarter. It's all on your quarterback's shoulders. I mean, obviously I'll take Mahomes, but Joe Burrow is right there. And then to me, there's a gap of everyone else, another bunch of great quarterbacks. But he showed last night. At some point, the Bengals are going to be heard from, and they made a big statement last night with that win over Buffalo.
What'd you make of the Dallas-Philly game? Like, Philly did a lot of things to not win that football game, and Dak played well. CeeDee Lamb had a huge game, but it still just wasn't enough. No matter how many times the Eagles turned that ball over.
I joked afterwards on Twitter that I could not believe I was cashing a ticket for the Eagles at -3 because they did everything they could to let the Cowboys back in that game on a number of occasions. And in typical Dallas fashion, it was right there for them. I mean, 2 things happened. That 4th and goal that they went for, which was a great call. I mean, the guy literally is just rolling into the end zone, but his knee's down, and he's out by about an inch.
So close.
So Eagles get the ball back, and that adds a whole bunch of time. And then on the 2-point convert, Dak, who really did not need to, it wasn't like he was forced to step out of bounds, did. So you take 6 points off the board there. You take 2 points off the board there. And then, of course, you're in a situation where you need to get a touchdown. But my God, the Eagles in the final 3 minutes of the game, I mean, did you see the play where they were just kind of trying to get a first down? They're going to hand it to Swift.
Yeah, it ran into a guy.
He gets clipped by Brown in the head. And I'll be honest, if Brown was a defender, he would have gotten flagged 15 yards. I mean, that was a shoulder right to the jaw.
It almost looked like Swift was out for a second.
They were
like when he fell down, he was like, and then he woke up and was like, I gotta get this ball. Like,
well, the funny thing is, he didn't get it. I mean, it was one of the linemen. It kind of made it through the pile. They got so lucky. And then to think that Dak gets the ball back, and again, Dallas, do a damn fair catch. He lets it go. It goes back another 15 yards, another 5 seconds. And yet they still bang, bang, bang. Next thing you know, I mean, they're right on the doorstep. But penalties brought them back. I don't know. That was a really fun game to watch. I still think Dallas has many of they're a super talented team, but they inevitably do a couple things to shoot themselves in the foot or come up just a little short in big moments. And that's what happened yesterday. But I'll be honest, that wasn't a massive confidence building win for the Eagles, if you ask me. I mean, I think Dallas got on that plane going back and going, how did we not win?
How about the Raiders having victory cigars after their big win over the Giants?
The Raiders. Let's just move on to the next one. The Giants are such a train wreck, though.
Daniel Jones out for the season.
And I'm like, hey, listen, Danny Jones is coming back. They'll at least have a better quarterback. And, he plays like 2 series. And next thing you look up and it's Tommy DeVito time. Again, at that point, basically just turn it off. That one was going to be an L. But as I say, Bengals and Eagles came up big, 2-2 for the weekend. I can live with that. We got a very interesting Monday nighter tonight, but I got to hear what Patty has to say about the Bills. Like I'm very interested to see how that loss is going over amongst the.
Is Patty connected already? Did you see him? Is he kicking around?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, I see him.
Yeah, you can come bring Patty in, Maddie. I didn't see him. I just see you on the screen right now. I didn't know Patty was there. Maddie, you can turn down my headphones again too. I don't know, man. Like. I'm starting to hear again. It's awesome. I don't know what's going on. It's perfect. All right, so there he is. Yeah, Patty. How long Patty been sitting there for? That's my bad.
He's been listening for the last few minutes.
Okay.
As we bounced around a few of these games.
We definitely could have brought him in on that Bills conversation, which we will do now. Mr. Gregoire, how you doing, man?
Doing fine, despite what you think after Bills dropped to 5-4, sitting on the outside. When they show the playoff picture tonight, the Bills will be in the little corner there in the hunt with all the other average teams. And I think that's the best way you can describe this Bills team right now. Average, just very average. It's disappointing. I feel like it's Groundhog Day. I come on here after every Bills loss and scream that, Ken Dorsey, and not even loss. It seems like every game that I'm sick and tired of seeing Ken Dorsey not run this offense the way it is. I talked to you guys. I said, I think we see Josh Allen run a little more. I think we see up tempo. We didn't see it until they were down too big.
Yeah.
And they finally got back. It just, the way that this offense runs when they're out of games or they need to score, it's like automatic. And I know you can't do that every single game, I shouldn't say every single game. You can't do that every single drive. But the issue with this team is they play way better when they're up tempo. They play way better when they're spreading the ball. It's just so infuriating. And I know there's a lot of talk about, man, this defense is so banged up. They're so injury ridden. They lost 2 linebackers again. Don't know the extent of those injuries just yet. But the defense, yes, they got absolutely worked in the first 2 possessions. They only gave up 3 points in that second half. For what this defense is doing and for, them being taped up and glued with paper mache, they're doing their job, especially in the second half. They like to hold Burrow in that offense the way that they were humming in the first half. I thought it was going to be a blowout. The defense did their job last night. And once again, Ken Dorsey and this offense has let down their team. Something's got to give. I really don't think that any major changes are going to happen this year, but it needs to happen. And even Sean McDermott should be on the hot seat. It's just, you are literally wasting Josh Allen's years of prime on ineptitude and not having the proper OC coach him. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Where do you come out? Who was I talking to today? Somebody on our show this morning. Maybe it was Mike Tenier, but somebody this morning kind of brought it up. Like, do they just not have enough good options there for him? Like the Gabe Davises and the Shakirs and those types of, are they just, I don't know if it's the case because we've seen their offense be really good in the past with some of these guys. So I tend to think it's not a personnel issue, but is it a bit of a personnel issue?
I think it is a little bit, but as we know in the National Football League, if you have a good coordinator, you can make things work. You can, that's what the job of a coach is, to coach up your players, to develop talent. And that's what we thought we did with Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis, this morning, you walk into a corner store in Orchard Park, New York, and Gabe Davis's face is right on a milk jug because he's lost. You couldn't find him anywhere. with the exception of him getting his face mask yanked in the end zone and him completely having a miscue with Allen that ended up being an intentional grounding penalty. Again, reffing is something for another day. Terrible last night, but that's not a good enough excuse for why they lost. But I agree, like maybe the offense isn't as good, but when you're supposed to have these offensive gurus and these geniuses, you find ways to get the offense going. Look at KC. They don't have a plethora of unbelievable talent up front, but they have an elite quarterback and they have a guy that can scheme up an offense and score enough points. That's what the Bills aren't able to do. The Bills have to realize the defense isn't as good as what they were at the start of the year when they're healthy, but they're going to be good enough and try to keep the score as low as possible. The offense has to figure out a way. So to answer your question in a long-winded answer, I do think it's a little bit of personnel. I don't think it's as good as maybe they thought. And maybe they should have gone out and got wide receiver number 2 because maybe Gabe Davis isn't wide receiver number 2. Their run game is pretty much non-effective, but is that a running back issue or is that more of an offensive line issue? I think that there is a lot of issues to the core. It starts with Dorsey, but I think Brandon Beane, the GM, should also be answering some of these things.
Hey, speaking of OCs under fire, we've been joking all year about how the Steeler Nation is just out to get Matt Canada. And there was a chant at like a Utah college game or something, fire Canada. Get this. I'm watching the Jets game against the Coyotes on Saturday afternoon at Mullet Arena in Glendale. And the puck goes in around the net and they've got a close-up. First row behind the glass, some guy just sitting there with a Fire Matt Canada sign at the Jets Coyotes game. And while he is not held in high esteem, Mike Tomlin could very well be the leader for Coach of the Year right now.
Absolutely.
We were just talking about that division before you came on. I mean, the Bengals, even with that win, still in a playoff spot, but 4th in the AFC North, Pat. And I think that will change. I mean, listen, I picked Baltimore to win that division at the start of the year. They're looking very, very good for that. They're tied at 7-2 right there with the Chiefs. But I have a hard time imagining the way we see Cincinnati right now that they are not at worst second in the division. But listen, they've already lost to the Steelers and Browns, so I guess those teams will have something to say about it.
But I think the cream rises to the top in that division. We've already seen the Ravens do it. Hand up, my worst pick. I had a pretty good week, but my most confident pick was my worst pick by far. And I think, Hussey, you might have been on it too.
That was over early. Well, we had that on the partner parlay. We had that with Cincy.
Let's not talk about them right now. Like, that's
awful. Yeah. But I think the Ravens are the real deal. I think they probably win that division, but I think that the Bengals are going to give them a good enough push to at least make it close. But that start to the year is really going to hurt them. But they've proven in the past that it doesn't matter how they start; they're going to finish strong. They'll end up in a wild card position, and they're going to be playing a team that probably is kicking themselves, saying, God damn it, we got to play this Bengals team.
Great, I'm glad we got home field. It's great that we got home field and we get Joe Burrow coming in. Here's the Bengals schedule for the rest of the way. It's not easy.
No.
They're home to the Texans. Then they're at Baltimore, home to the Steelers, at the Jags, home games against the Colts and Vikings, then at Pittsburgh. So I guess they haven't played Pittsburgh yet. 2 games left against the Steelers. At Pittsburgh, at Kansas City, and then the final week of the season, a game against the Browns and that Browns defense. So, I mean, they absolutely have to stack these wins right now, so they're not in a situation where their playoff berth is on the line going into Arrowhead against a Chiefs team that in all likelihood that'll be a very meaningful game for them. I mean, regardless of the division, which would be sewn up. I mean, you're talking about trying to get that 1 seed. And then the Browns are Joe Burrow's kryptonite. So
yeah, big time. I was just going to bring that up. It is. And again, like I said, I think that the 2 best teams will get to the top, but I mean, the Steelers have shown no reason to think that they're not going to at least hang around. And I think the Browns yesterday, obviously it's against a really bad team, but with that defense, they're going to be a tough out. I think they'll be on the outside looking in when it comes to a playoff position. But with that defense, man, they're going to give a lot of teams a lot of fits. And you mentioned it. For whatever reason, Joe Burrow has owned so many teams so early in his career, but the Browns just have that guy's number.
Should we move ahead to the Monday Nighter, or do you guys have anything else you want to hit on?
Let's get to this game tonight. This game, Chargers and Jets. You know what's interesting, Pat? I can't remember seeing this before. I'm not sure whether that changes. It had been at 3.5. The line is now 3, but it moves straight to 4 from 3. There's no 3.5, and I don't know whether that's a sign. We think that this is going to be a 3-point game right now. I mean, you can take it to 2.5 if you want the Chargers at -139, but the Jets are -102 at +3, and then again, no 3.5, so we go straight to 4. And and that's actually changed a little bit. It was -125 at the beginning of the program. It's now -130 right now. A home dog with a great defense is always dangerous, and the Chargers. God knows we had a lot of fun conversations on the Chargers, and we have stared it down in the face before and actually won on Chargers. I got a hard time having confidence that they can go in on the road and kind of manhandle that Jets defense. Like, I think this is going to be a very, very tight game, much like many of the games that the Jets have played since Zach Wilson took over as the quarterback. I mean, you think back. Yeah. I mean, right off the bat, they had that win over the Bills. They got waxed by the Cowboys, but they were really tight against the Patriots. We remember how close that Chiefs game was, and they've just rattled off 3 wins in a row at the Broncos, home to the Eagles, at the Giants, in a game that everyone has just erased from their mind because of how bad the game is. But I guess the point is, they always hang in there. And I have no doubt that Rob Saleh is going to have this team going tonight. They're going to be ready for prime time. Justin Herbert is going to be under some severe duress for most of the game. And, at that point, create a turnover. Like, this is on Zach Wilson not to F it up, if you know what I'm saying. Like, move the football. Don't turn the football over. If you have to punt, no problem. This defense is going to keep you in the game. So I'm leaning towards taking the Jets and the points in this one. Dusty, what?
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think you laid out the case even beyond the Chargers aspect of this.
Yeah,
it's a really good defense as a home dog and a team that has proven that they have the ability to at least play at this type of level. Like, are we not realizing that the Chargers haven't been a good football team so far this year? And there are some player props on the Chargers side of things that I certainly like. But I'm with you, Huss, 100%. I do like the Jets here, plus the points at home. And I don't really need to be convinced much further than that. Pete Greggy, where are you at on this?
I'm on the same page as you guys. Like, I know a couple weeks ago, tongue in cheek, I was like, the Jets are the best team in the division. That still might be a little tongue in cheek, but after Miami is once again proven they can't beat good teams, and the Bills are as mid as they come, as the kids say.
Ooh, wow, nice mid reference, buddy. Look at you. Holy smokes.
Maybe, just maybe, this Jets team deserves to be in the conversation with those 2 other teams to, possibly win this division. Because if you had to pick the best unit in this division, I think it could be a coin toss against Miami's offense against the Jets defense. And we know when games come down to it in the postseason or these must-win games, I'll take the defense 9 times out of 10. So I think that not only is this defense going to give a lot of fits for the Chargers defense is impossibly bad. Like, impossibly bad. I think that there's an opportunity for some some good props here for the Jets. Like I think that I'm not saying the Jets are going to light up this Chargers team by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think that this is going to be a case where, the Jets just don't have enough offense to keep up with the Chargers, because I do think this defense can keep them at bay. We know historically, like, Herbert has unbelievable underlying stats when it comes to throwing against the blitz. Well, the Jets don't need to blitz. They're going to have enough pressure coming from their front that they don't need to worry about blitzing. And I think that there's going to be a lot of issues here for Herbert. And I just think it's going to be too much for him to handle. And I think the Jets come away with a win. At worst, if we can get that hook at 3.5, you cannot tell me that this game's not going to at least come down to the last possession on a potential game-winning field goal.
Well, we can usually get whatever we want, right? So we can get it at 3.5 in a little parlay if we want. That's
Yes,
no
we
problem.
can.
So I do like.
We will, and to answer that, that's probably right now just some things going on with some line adjustments. I can almost guarantee at some point the public will be able to get
that'll be
3.5.
back. Yeah.
That will be back. But like you said, we know a guy, and I think we can make something work if we want it on our card.
So that works out okay. I think we could put that on the card if we wanted. Us, what else are you thinking as far as the props or other plays in this game?
Well, the one guy that I'm quite excited to see tonight is Breece Hall. I mean, I think when you talk about the Jets offense, like, Garrett Wilson, like I'm a guy that was really high on Wilson coming into this year, and then Rodgers goes out, and then I kind of have just had him on my bench thinking that he's unplayable when it comes to fantasy this year. I mean, he had 100 yards in the last game. I mean, his total is 66, and he is sort of the guy, and they really do. Like, how receivers are somewhat diva. Like, even if they got to the backup quarterback and they're winning, like, they need to get the ball.
Yep,
and I think that they are going to find a way to, to throw at him. And I mean, the quarter, J.C. Jackson's been, well, you just kind of laid out where their defense is at. The rushing prop for Breece Hall is 58.5. Rushing 58.5 over -118. The receiving is 20.5.
I love his receiving prop. I love it.
Yeah, it's one of the three that I had written down here. The last two games, he's been targeted a total of 14 times, caught 11 of them, had 54 yards and 76 yards in the last two games. Like, it looks to me like their recipe for success is using him in the passing game somewhat of significance. And then just to follow up on what Huss said about Garrett Wilson, he's got 190 yards receiving in the last two games. And in the last two games, he's been targeted 25 times. So to me, the Jets right now are just either throwing the ball to Breece Hall or throwing the ball to Garrett Wilson. Like, that's what's happening here.
I feel like our card is coming together pretty easily here, fellas, because both those props are at the top of mine. To build off of what Wilson's on the chat about Wilson, if you look at what some of the top wide receivers have done, or even top targets, we could say, against this Chargers team, man, it has been ugly. CeeDee Lamb 117, Justin Jefferson 149, Tyreek Hill 215, Travis Kelce 179. Yes, I know Wilson isn't in the conversation of elite talent like those guys, but he's not far down. And Huss, you said it. It is very obvious that they are trying to keep Wilson happy. They're trying to get him his touches, and there is a little bit of chemistry being built between the two Wilsons. So that, I think, either the 66.5 or even the over 5.5 at plus money right now at Coolbet is enticing as well. So either one of those. I love the Breece Hall over 20.5. I think that's a no-brainer. And my last one as well is a Herbert interception at plus money, plus 115. Like, with how good this defense is, with how well they turn the ball over, and the fact that, we might see it come down. Like, how many times have we seen in Herbert's young career that the game's on his shoulders and it's too much for him, and he tries to make a great play, and next thing you know, he's throwing a pick in the end zone. I also really like the Herbert interception as well.
So what do we like? I would normally say, hey, I'm always in for a pick prop on these teams. I do wonder though, if they if the way the game goes, if he doesn't need to be like maybe late in the game, if they're losing or something like that, you got to roll it out and make it. But the one way that the Chargers will lose this game is if they lose the turnover battle, and if they do some unnecessary things that cost them. So I could see them maybe being a little less aggressive when it comes to. Sure. I mean, this isn't a game against Miami or against Kansas City, and I mean, he probably doesn't need to be ripping it out. And let's face it, their secondary and corners are great. I mean, they're probably going to have Sauce Gardner on Keenan Allen, I'd imagine, for most of the night.
Yeah.
But if we like the Breece Hall 20.5 receiving yards, I mean, I'm kind of intrigued at the 5.5 receptions at even money
for Wilson. Yeah, I was going to say, did you say that's the better number money wise, right? The receptions. Yeah. I think I'd be totally fine with that at 5.5. The other one that I had, and it doesn't fit with this Jets narrative that we are building, but Austin Eckler over 32.5 yards. You guys mentioned the Jets can put Herbert under duress quite a bit. That can go one of two ways. You start keeping Eckler in to block a little bit more and protect a little bit more. Or if they're going to shut down Keenan Allen, is it just going to be dump off city to Austin Eckler all night? In the 4 games so far for him, 94 yards against the Bears, 35 yards against the Cowboys, 47 yards against the Dolphins. The only game he really didn't do anything in was a game he was targeted twice, and that was that loss to Kansas City. So 32.5 is a nice-looking number for Eckler as well. But I do think I like the Hall and Wilson numbers more if we're going to throw that on with like a Jets plus 3.5 type of thing.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at.
I'm down. Here. I'm down with that for sure. I think just with the way that the Jets defense is built, I think that a way that the Chargers, especially early on, can kind of establish some momentum is the little check downs to Eckler. So I'm good with that, but at the same time, I think the 2 Jets props, and if we're going to go with the Jets, might as well go with the 2 Jets props, right?
Yeah, no, I would agree. So we're on Hall over 20.5, Wilson 6 catches plus, right? Over 5.5, and then the Jets plus 3.5, and that would be our partner parlay for this game tonight. I do want to talk some hockey with Patty. Hush, you got anything left on this game tonight for the Monday nighter?
Well, yeah, one thing, and Patty, I'm sure you'll have a primetime parlay. Hashtag free money plus 110 over 3.5 field goals.
Bingo.
I mean, I would say that we could put that in on the partner parlay, but I know you're going to have it. That will be my favorite bet of the night. So maybe we keep that out of the partner parlay. We go with the Jets. What did we say? Jets plus 3.5, Breece Hall over 20.5 receiving yards, and Garrett Wilson over 5.5 receptions.
Just so you know, the Jets average the second most field goals per game, 2.4 per game. Only the Browns.
Beautiful.
So they could do it themselves.
The defense is good enough that the Chargers will move the football, but I mean, I think they'll be. Listen, we might even need an alt line like last week, week for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, we're rocking here. Let's get those in. Do you have the primetime parlay already?
I don't have it yet because I just had this weird feeling that you guys were going to be on similar ones, so I didn't want to cannibalize the parlay. So now that I know the ones that I was going to put in are the partner parlay, maybe I look at that Eckler, maybe I look at a Joey Bosa sack and over 3.5. So keep your eyes to the socials. We'll have the primetime parlay up there. It's been added to the Lock Shop tab, and I can say the Lock Shoppers have been riding with me. We haven't got a win in a couple weeks.
Good.
But I'm going to reward them with a big win tonight. I can feel it.
Well, I mean, the partner parlay for these primetime games, I believe, is hit automatic. 3 of the last 4.
Yeah.
So it's been good. And listen, let's get one in because I'm not even sure that a parlay could get me to watch the Bears-Carolina game on Thursday night. So we need to.
Hey, do you know what I do like in that one? Field goals. So that's good news. I do like that. No, I wanted to talk a little bit about hockey because we got the Oilers game tonight here, but we had Dreger on our show today, and he was saying people in Toronto are pretty rattled right now by what's going on with the Leafs. They're a minus 152 favorite tonight at home against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Patty, do you have any thoughts on that tilt?
It is pretty crazy, like in a game against the Lightning, that they're that big of a favorite. But I mean, if you look over the past few years, it's actually the scales are starting to tip the other way with Toronto. But with that being said, the defense is really banged up right now. The bottom six just not able to figure things out offensively, but their stars are performing. We saw Matthews with another hat trick. William Nylander was a little bit of a quiet night for him, but still keeping that historic pace. Marner starting to heat up, but the big issue is, Leafs Nation was promised more snot, more grit, more character. And then the first sign of any sort of pushback you need. Timothy Liljegren goes into the boards with a very questionable trip / slew foot / hockey play, depending on who you ask what it was. And nothing happens to Marchand. Everyone's he's yipping at the bench, dead silent. The only one
Bertuzzi
laughing
on the side of the bench, kind of laughing. I mean, holy crap, that was a terrible visual.
Yeah.
I'll say this, for all the hoopla surrounding the 3-year contract to Ryan Reeves, all that guy's done this year is lead the league in threats, because he hasn't done anything. And like, I wonder, like, when Wi-Fi manhandled him in that Montreal game earlier on, like, that wasn't a great way to start. And the biggest thing is nothing happens when he's on the ice right now.
No,
it's harder and harder to play him.
Lots
does
happens
happen
down there. Yeah.
It's Joseph Woll or Ilya Samsonov picking up the puck out of the net. Like, I think they've been outscored like 8-0 anytime he's been on the ice 5-on-5 this year.
Sorry, boys.
So
he serves no purpose. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The game has passed him by. He can sit there and talk and have hot quotes and be like, wasn't on the ice with Marchand after that. We'll see. Come on. Like, first of all, the Bruins would love to have you on the ice versus Brad Marchand. I guarantee it, because you know what they're going to do? They're going to score a goal. So,
and the thing is, you can clearly tell that there is a disconnect between the coach and the new GM. Like, let's be honest. Like, Keefe is through and through a Dubas guy. They came together through the Greyhounds. They went together, won a championship with the Marlies. Dubas is out. Keefe is still there. Bertuzzi has been in the doghouse the majority of this season, taking a lot of penalties. But like, his leash is just so much shorter than everyone else's. And you could tell, and like Ryan Reeves, even if you shouldn't be in the lineup, but if he's in the lineup and something like that happens, you got to use him, and that nothing's happened. So it almost seems like there's already a rift in between the GM and the head coach. And there's a lot of things that it's not this new regime, because the coach is still coaching the way that they were last year, and still running Marner and Matthews with insane minutes, because it's, it just seems to me it's an instance where there is that disconnect. It was supposed to be a new beginning, but how do you have a new beginning when the right hand man of the old guy is still running the bench?
Tough to do it. You're right. That is not ideal. Haas, Winnipeg Sports Talk coming up.
Yeah, big show. John Shannon's going to jump on. We'll talk a bunch of pucks. Jeff Hamilton, get ready for the upcoming weekend of the Canadian Football League and the latest on the Bombers. More on the Jets as they head to St. Louis to hopefully build off that win yesterday. Here's an idea, Patty, just before I go. Talk to Evdog and the rest of the big brains there in the back room. I'd like odds on next coach to be fired in Canada.
Okay.
So, I mean, really, we want to just use these 3 teams, but DJ in Ottawa, Sheldon Keefe, Woodcroft in Edmonton. These are the hot spots right now in the National Hockey League. I would love to know what they come up. I mean, even if you just took, of those 3 teams, who is most likely to be the first one to walk the plank of those?
Ottawa.
Of those?
Is it Ottawa?
It's got to be Ottawa.
I think it's got to be
Ottawa. I think
he would be the favorite.
GM's gone, new owner, new guys calling the shots. No, I mean, Patty just laid out the case for what's happening in Toronto too, right? So, and even Jeff Jackson here in Edmonton was not one who's like CEO of hockey or whatever the hell it is.
True.
he wasn't the one.
How
who brought
many
in Woodcroft,
times?
so.
How many times did Woodcroft get fired in the nasty inbox today?
Oh, quite a few. Here's the thing with Woodcroft. He's only coached 130 games. He's got like a 650 winning percentage.
Well,
this ain't on him. This ain't on him.
That's the argument with Keefe as well, right? Like you look at it, like it's how many regular season games has he won? So like but at the end of the day, like what else has he done on top of that? I'm on the proponent of I think there needs to be a change. Unfortunately, I thought it should have been in the off season. Does a change in season really do anything? But that's a great. I will put that forward to the.
Yeah, if we could get that, you guys would get some action on it for sure, boys. I guarantee
for sure.
that. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, there's nothing.
No doubt.
There's nothing Canadians like more than betting on people losing their jobs, and we'll be able to provide that over at Cool Bet. I know. Hey, just the worst.
I guess I did bring that.
Yeah, that was you, man.
I should have.
That was you. All right, I got Fantasy Football 5 coming up right away, boys. Enjoy the Monday nighter. We got the field goals. We'll have the exclusives locked in and ready to go. I know our Edmonton Sports Talk one is already going. I got a Cool Bet hotline play of the day coming in a little bit as well. Patty, what do you want to get in before we go, man?
Before we go, just wanted to big announcement here for those that have been taking part of the Hockey Hall contest going on at CoolBet. If you're not, you can get involved. Basically, any bet of $10 or more on the NHL exclusives this NHL season at CoolBet, you get put into a contest to win tickets, a CoolBet swag, NHL swag. This month it is tickets. And this month's winner for October is JBro_Makilla. So JBro_Makilla, if you're watching, you are the winner. Win 2 tickets to the Edmonton Oilers this month. We'll reach out to you. We'll hit you up in the email. Saw he's been doing some bets on the Lock Shop and Edmonton Sports Talk.
Nice.
He's from the Edmonton area, I believe. So
beautiful.
We do know that he's obviously a listener if he's riding bets with you guys. So we'll hit you up either in your DMs or with an email. We'll get you those tickets. And for those who haven't bet, yes, big round of applause for J-Bro. And if you haven't, don't worry. It all resets every single month. So starting now in November, for every bet that you make $10 or more on an NHL exclusive, you'll get entered into the draw.
Congratulations to J-Bro. Lock Shop will be back tomorrow. Have a good day, guys.
Later, fellas.
See you, boys. Go field goals.
All right, it is the Fantasy Football 5 brought to you by Century Casino on Fort Road, Sports Bar and Lounge. Lieutenant Eric will be there tonight for a little bit of a double dip, right? Why not get out? They got the loaded burgers on special tonight. You roll on in. Eric's there with his band of merry men. And Renee, hi, I'm Renee at Century Casino. You can join them tonight, and then the hockey game will start at 8 o'clock. So they've got about, 1 million screens in there. And you can go on down, get a nice, affordable, delicious meal. Maybe place a few wagers on the ponies or hit the machines or the tables on the way in or out, but join Lieutenant Eric tonight. Fantasy Football 5, if you have any questions, hit us up. If you need a last-minute guy that you want to slide in, Quentin Johnson might be somebody that you could look at for tonight's game. I think we already know the basics for tonight's as far as a start and sit goes. I don't think there's anything that's going to surprise you too much. You're starting Breece Hall. You're starting Garrett Wilson. You're starting Justin Herbert. You're starting Austin Eckler. And you're starting Keenan Allen. That's probably about it that you'd be overly comfortable with. But let's talk about saving your season. Maybe. I'm probably getting in over my head a little bit. But I did trade for C.J. Stroud in our 16-man league a couple weeks ago. And luckily, I almost hesitated yesterday and put Deshaun Watson back in. Even though all I do on the Fantasy Football 5 is just trash Deshaun Watson over and over and over again. Yesterday, for a brief moment, I was like, you know what? Maybe this is the week that I've been holding on to him for the entire season. But it did not go that way. I ended up starting C.J. Stroud. And my team that is 2-6, about to improve to 3-6, has put up 117 points. That is good for the second most in the league this week. And all of a sudden, this team that I was going to tear down and rip apart, maybe C.J. Stroud saves the year. I can get into the playoffs, and you never know once you have a ticket to the dance. I also in another one of my leagues this week. And if you have any questions, hit us up. Nasty chat, 780-218-9999. I traded for Tony Pollard. Actually, I guess I made a couple of trades. In the one league, it's a dynasty league. I traded Deebo Samuel for Tony Pollard. I was extremely weak at running back, and the receiver group was relatively strong. So I felt pretty good making this deal. Now it's pending because I just accepted it yesterday, and we're just getting through the week. But I'll be trading Deebo Samuel for Tony Pollard, which then would set me up with, it's a super flex league. I've got Mahomes and Josh Allen at quarterback, so that alone should probably win me the league. CeeDee Lamb, Calvin Ridley, Jahan Dotson, Jalen Waddle, Marquise Brown at receiver. And then now I've added Tony Pollard to go along with a group of running backs that is not impressive, but when healthy would be okay. Miles Sanders, David Montgomery there as well. So pretty happy. I also started Cleveland's defense week in that league, so that helps as well. So really nice receiver group. So I decided to sacrifice one of them, traded Deebo for Tony Pollard. Let me know your thoughts on that. And then in the Wandering Cone Fantasy Football League, I was really wheeling and dealing this week. I traded Drake. So this is a keeper league, but we only keep 4. And none of the guys I traded I would have been keeping. And I'm pretty deep at wide receiver in the JRFL as well. Give me your thoughts on this. This is why I share these trades. Did I screw up? So in that league, I traded Drake London, Marquise Brown, and in that I'm 4-4 right now. I'm going to win this week, so go to 5-4. So I traded Drake London, Marquise Brown, and a second-round pick for Austin Eckler, who I will keep. The other guys I'm not keeping, so I'll keep Eckler. So my lineup down the stretch in this league will be some sort of combination of Deshaun Watson, Jared Goff, and Justin Fields, whoever's healthy. Even after trading the 2 wide receivers that I traded in London and Brown, I still have Nico Collins, Godwin, CeeDee Lamb, and Jordan Addison. So I felt this is what you have to do. You have to identify throughout the season and then figure out the right time to pull the trigger on it. But you identify where your strengths are, try to flip them to improve your weaknesses, and basically that's really your only move outside of a great waiver wire claim at some point, right? If you can't take something from your strengths and turn it into your weaknesses, you're kind of screwed unless you just drafted extremely well off the top. So, I don't know. I felt like Deebo, there's so many weapons there. He hasn't been the same now that Ayuk's connected with Purdy and Christian McCaffrey's there. I'm not, like, I think I'm paying a fair price for Tony Pollard at that point. Am I a little bit of a risk on Tony Pollard? Sure. But at the same time, I felt like it was probably worth it for Deebo. Let's see here. Dan Spence. I'm fading Tony Pollard. My running backs are Pollard, Walker, and Taylor. Wide receivers, Higgins and A.J. Brown. It was nice to see T. Higgins finally come through. I have him in that 16-team league, too. I needed a week from him as well, and we got it. The big waiver wire claim this week, you know who it's going to be? Well, maybe not. Like in deep leagues, in our 16-team league, this guy's still available, and I think I do have the top waiver claim spot heading into the week. Keaton Mitchell. Actually, Maddie, is your mic in? Do you know much about this Ravens running back? Keaton Mitchell, he had a huge game. He was over 100 yards. But the problem is that he got 9 carries. Lamar got 10. Gus gets all the goal line work. And Justice Hill had 13 carries. So I'm sitting here going, well, I could definitely use a running back. But at the same time, how sketchy is, yeah, this is the backfield for the Ravens, who are a juggernaut. Don't get me wrong. But Justice Hill had 13 carries for 40 yards. Gus Edwards had 5 carries for 52 yards, 2 touchdowns. Lamar Jackson carried the ball 10 times for 60 yards. And then this Keaton Mitchell had that big 60-yard touchdown run, but finished with 9 carries for 138 yards. So I don't know. Like, I want him because I'm weak at running back in that league, and it's a super weak waiver wire every single week. But at the same time, are you starting him every single week now? I don't think you can do that because it's just you need, like, Justice Hill to get hurt. Then Hill's carries go to Mitchell, maybe a couple to Edwards, and all of a sudden you're laughing. So that would be something that I would look at as well. That's a Monday for the Fantasy Football 5. Join Lieutenant Eric tonight. We've got an all-flannel edition coming up of the oil stream today. It's like Tommy and I are about to get in an 18-wheeler and head out of town after this. I guess we're taking Woodcroft with us, right? Is that what people probably want to say? We'll get into it. Tommy said on Friday if they lost, he was done. He was done. So I'm expecting a pretty fired up oil stream today, which is going to be happening right away as well. That'll do it for the Fantasy Football 5. Stick around. If you are watching on YouTube, you'll just be transitioned right over. If you're listening on TuneIn, sit tight. Oil stream's coming up right away, and we're looking forward to diving into what has become a complete mess.